FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry, Lutz, and sure, you've heard about the recent hack. Hackers took over $1 billion from banks in over 30 countries. It was a relatively low-tech, simple, but eloquent in its simplicity. The scheme, it was just brilliant. We've got Heather Wagenhals with us now. Talk about this scheme. We're all sitting ducks. Heather, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, Kerry. It's great to be here.
Hey, so this scheme, I mean, it was really kind of simple, nothing too high tech. They didn't have the keys to the Pentagon or to the Federal Reserve, but they were able to penetrate all of these banks and hit them almost simultaneously. I mean, it kind of sounded like something from Breaking Bad, you know?
It's just crazy. And what was, I guess, the good thing for consumers and bank customers is that they were targeting the banks themselves. It wasn't like they targeted individual customers and they didn't steal a bunch of customer data. You know, they stole moolah from banks, and it was really clever. And a lot of banks in a lot of different countries. So it was really kind of surreptitious and on the fly. It was very creative.
Right. And the banks are all insured, I would imagine, right?
Well, yeah, I'm sure that they have some sort of stopgap. You know, no one has been able to interview any specific banks because those specific institution names have not really been released anywhere. And so we haven't been able to chat with anybody to really find out, okay, what happened? What have you done? Obviously, it's not going to affect your customers, but how do you get recompensed for the fraud?
Yeah. And what surprises me is that they can't trace them. They can't trace them and figure out where the money went to.
Right. You know, and it was orchestrated on a significant level. There's a girl that I know in my Toastmasters group, and she's an encryption expert. And so she taught me all the ins and outs because I said, look, you know, why is this happening and how does it happen when we have encryption that supposedly can't be broken? And there's 2 ways they can steal information. So data at rest is information that sits on your computer, like when you're sitting there in the middle of making a transaction with your bank, and so you're paying your bills and you're typing in the dollar amount that you're going to be sending in. You're typing in account numbers. And that information that resides in your browser is called data at rest. And so that information just sits there. And if there is an infection or a virus or some sort of spyware on your computer, data at rest can be captured in that manner. Now, when you go to send the data, when you hit enter or to process the transaction, that's called data in motion. And so that data can be stripped or it can be intercepted, where it passes through a different point before it gets to its endpoint. And that is harder to do, to capture the data in motion, because that's where the encryption, pays for itself, is when the data is in motion. But when the data gets there, what happens? There are nefarious characters usually on the inside of a bank in order to make these things work, because you have to have the way the keys talk to each other. You, the consumer, have a key, and I, the bank, have a key, and they have to talk to each other. So the problem then becomes when you have somebody on the inside that changes the keys or affects it in some way that they can't complete the transaction, or they complete it with a key that someone else has.
Right. Yeah. So they just...
And so to think about how many people, every person you involve in a crime, if you just think like from movies and masterminds, every additional person you add to your scheme adds another level of risk of the operation failing. And they did this over a period of time. They watched and waited. It just happened overnight. It's been going on since 2013 when they kind of started their deal, according to Kaspersky, which is one of the cyber software you could put on your computer to watch for cyber crimes. Mm-hmm. And so what happens, is that, 30 different countries have been affected and tons of banks. And so, it's hard to imagine that they could employ that many people and be under the radar, but they have.
Yeah, well, criminals can be very smart. Never doubt the intellectual capacities of criminals, right?
Yes, There, and it's a shame because if you can spend that much time applying yourself for nefarious purposes, I mean, imagine what you could do when people are willing to help you and invite you in, as opposed to you having to storm the gate.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's the shame of it that somehow there's this crisis in their confidence, in their ability to actually do things legally and to do things honestly, that they feel that this is the only way they can do things.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, it's not just them getting away with it. What happens when crimes are committed is that it raises the costs for everyone.
Exactly. Even if it is insured, then it raises the cost of insurance. Either way, you're going to pay for it, right?
Yes, we pay for it one way or another because if a bank has to make a claim, we all know when you make an insurance claim, guess whose rates are going up? And they're just going to pass it on to their customers.
Yeah, just like shoplifting, like any crime, it's you and I that wind up paying for it in the end because we're going to pay for it in the form of higher costs that are passed on to the consumer, to the end user, regardless what it is, whether it's insurance, whether it's costs at the supermarket or costs at the department store for shoplifting. Doesn't matter. The end consumer winds up taking it on the chin.
Well, what I'm thinking, though, now, as you were just sharing that with me about how everybody takes it in the end, for you and I, who are slightly savvy at this money thing, maybe we should go find an investor and start insuring these banks. Because can you imagine the premiums that we would collect every month?
Yeah, and then the key to insurance, always the way insurance companies make money is exclusions, legal things that are written into the policy that enable you to not have to pay the claim, right? My father always said insurance companies are in business not to pay claims.
Exactly, and to spread the risk.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So let's start an insurance company, and it's harder to do it in some states than others. In New York, Massachusetts, Illinois, very hard to start an insurance company. But in Florida, in lesser regulated states, you can make a killing. But
come to Arizona. It's the Wild West out here.
Yeah, but bringing it down to you, the individual, how do you stop yourself from getting hacked? Because it's real difficult, because even if you have the firewall, Heather, you have a scanner, you have all this stuff going on. If you click the wrong link, it doesn't matter, right?
Correct, because, I shouldn't say cool, but most cleverest scams that I've seen coming up now is, these links that, you get these phishing programs. Yeah. So it's like an email or something that gets sent to you from somebody who seems pretty reputable as a software provider and says, why don't you try this other software for free? And so you're like, oh, okay, free is good. And I just click on and I download something. Mm-hmm. And there's this new phishing software that actually takes and it watches what you do. So it gets installed on your system, maybe, from a browser where you've clicked on something, or it's been recommended, from some of those apps that are freeware, and they advertise other apps in order to make the money on them. And so you click on this thing, it gets installed, in a very subversive way. And then all of a sudden, one day after it's been watching you type, it throws up this billboard and says, the FBI says that there's porn on this computer and you've been watching porn and you pay $1 fine. And then across the bottom, there's a graphic that says you can get a card at Kmart or Walmart and all of these retailers that sell them, and you need to pay this $200 fine. And it has another link to click on for the FBI.gov. And of course, it's not the FBI's website, but it's one that looks exactly like it. And then you go there and then you type in your card information and send your money, and then your computer still doesn't work, and now you're out the cash too.
That's quite a scam. Jeez.
Yeah. So to answer your question, though, I didn't answer your question. So how can we protect ourselves without having to, become like a cyber hacker ourselves in order to outwit them? Is we just have to be vigilant and careful. So we need to make sure that we're not storing information and passwords in our browsers. It is so convenient to just visit your website regularly, like Facebook or Twitter or whatever your favorite website is, and be logged in when you get there. No question, it saves time, and you don't have to remember 5 million different passwords. This is data at rest, and if something malicious gets onto your computer, it's data that's at risk. So you got to do that. You got to clear your cache and your cookies. It's a pain in the butt, I know, but if you want to be secure, you have to take as many steps as you can possibly to be secure. Make sure that you have an anti-spyware, spamware, adware type of program running that when those things attempt to get installed, it grabs it right away and it quarantines it, and it lets you determine if you want to delete it or what you want to do with it. But you've got to have that on your computer because, like you said, firewalls, yeah. It's what is the wall and where is it? We're in a virtual world. It's abstract at best. So it's not like you can build a fence around your house and make your house a fortress. You can't fortify a computer, with physical, tangible things. So you have to do the best you can in the virtual world. And so to create firewalls and then to be actively monitoring your computer system is another important thing. And never, ever give up personal confidential data if you're not familiar or you don't know why they're asking for it to begin with. These websites that, for like alcoholic websites, they always ask you to put in your date of birth before you can go to the website. I never put in my own date of birth.
No, never, ever.
I just make sure it's one that's 21 and over because, somebody could use that reference because it gets cached on my computer. So it's sitting and, data at rest is sitting ducks at rest.
Yeah, I don't understand how people ever put in their real date of birth and anything. Hey, when we return, other things that you can do, other precautions you can do to stop from being a victim. You're not going to lose $1 billion, but you might lose enough money that it's really going to hurt you. On the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every week the show is growing. Would you like to be a part of it? Then go to clubfsn.com and help support us with $1, $2, $5, or $10 a month and get a host of premium content with newsletters dropped into your mailbox, free books, private audio clips, webinars, and much more. Then join clubfsn.com. If you want to get ahead of the trend and ensure your family's financial security before it's too late, go to clubfsn.com and sign up.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And if you just tuned in, we're talking with Heather Wagenhals. She is an expert in identity theft and computer security. And Heather, what's the best program that you can get on your own computer that's going to protect you from a lot of these bad and nefarious characters out there? There a program that you use?
Yeah, I do actually have a favorite one. There's a lot of stuff that comes pre-installed, and most of it's good. I've used Norton, I've used Kaspersky, but the one that I really like, and which I wish I got an endorsement for me to do, is one that's called WebRoot.
WebRoot.
And the reason why it's lightweight.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take up a lot of data on your computer. And because it's a web-based security system, it's always up to date. You don't have to wait and download updates and worry about whether you're at threat. It's always on. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you hit an internet connection, it's going to update itself automatically. You always have the latest information about viruses, spyware, adware, and all that stuff. And you get, a little box comes up on your screen the minute a threat is detected. Bam, there's a little box. It'll stop you in your tracks to ask you what you want to do with it. So it's a great one.
Nice. I mean, I'm a Mac person, and that doesn't mean that you are impervious to threats. You certainly are not. But there are less threats seemingly for Macs. But now we know that the NSA is into everything. I don't know if you've caught those articles recently, but the NSA hacked all those cards, the SanDisk cards. So they were listening into every phone call in the world. And, there is no safety, but hopefully the NSA, well, I wouldn't say you can trust them. They are from the government, right? They're here to help.
So they say. What's funny is as I get nervous about that, only because I have a friend and, we met in a really crazy situation. And so like when things happen, we always talk back to each other and we make up these, like we have these colorful stories that we'll talk to each other about being spies. And we've told our friends' kids, my one friend, his daughter is convinced that I'm a retired spy, And so we have this like running thing, and we always are saying stuff, and we use words, that I'm like, we mentioned Fallujah or something, and we're like, oh my God, what if somebody comes down on us? And it's like, it reminds me of that movie. Do you remember with Bill Murray and Peter Gallagher, The Man Who Knew Too Little?
Too little, right? Yeah.
and I think, oh my God, I'm just going to bumble my way into an actual crime ring, and I'm going to be so tortured or something heinous will happen to me. But, it's just something funny that we do. But, if the NSA is seeing that and if they're only searching for certain keywords, and I'm talking about spying and, doing things in different parts of the world, it's like, what? I'm worried about a red flag. I mean, that was the first thing I thought of when I heard about that. I was like, oh my God, they're going to come after me. And I'm just making it up.
Yeah. Well, maybe they have algorithms to be able to detect when you know what you're talking about or don't know what you're talking about, huh?
If one can only hope. But yeah, so there are things that we can do to protect ourselves each and every day. And what we have to do is we have to remember that just because our guard is down with people we know doesn't mean that they may not have an ulterior motive. I think about how Bernie Madoff swindled all of his purported friends. And so we listen to all of this stuff about, Home Depot and Target and all of these places that are getting hacked and all of this information is compromised. Well, I shop at Home Depot probably like once a week. There's always something breaking or needing a replacement. And I'm always having to go get some little 35-cent part to make it work. So I'm always over there. I'm always over at Target. They're actually in the same parking lot. And I shopped there during the compromise. And I have yet to have anything happen with any of those cards that I used at that time. So that's not what we got to get worried about, because that distracts us. And that just creates this sense of hypervigilance. And I think that that's unnecessary, because that's not what we have to worry about. We have to worry about what comes in our inbox every day in the form of Nigerian wire transfers to people trying to escape harm's way. We have to get away from the Verizon 28 scam saying they're going to give you $28 to visit this Verizon28offer.com link. And, it looks just like it's got the same look and feel of the Verizon website, but it's a phishing website.
And the Amazon scams.
Those are the things.
You seen those Amazon scams? They're like all over the place. They keep telling you they want to ship you stuff. They owe you money. And I guess most of the people in the country are using Amazon to buy stuff at this point, Heather. And
you can't go to the store and buy stuff. I mean, I'm a queen of Amazon. There's boxes coming all the time. My husband had no idea how much I shopped on Amazon household stuff until we went from living in a condo to living in a home, because now he sees all the boxes piled up out back versus in the condo, I could stuff them down the trash chute and he never knew.
The truth, the truth has come out.
Yeah, but for like household goods and stuff like that, like that you buy all the time, like paper towels, toilet paper, cups, plasticware,
right.
You just can't beat it. By the time you get in your car and drive down the street, you're not even at the store and you've spent more money than what you would have spent on Amazon, and they bring it to you. So you can't beat that.
Yeah.
You've got to be hyper vigilant about those types of things, because it's those little things where we feel overconfident that we're impervious to scams and frauds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to watch out for. That's the most important thing. It's like politics. People get worried about, the economy and stuff like that. And the economy and the laws of the land that you have to worry about are the ones that affect you locally. All politics are local. Your homeowners association probably has more prohibitive and restrictive rules than the federal or state government ever will. And nobody ever pays attention to that. Nobody gripes about that or concerns himself about. But those are the laws you live by every day. And so those are the scams that we have to look at. The local, easy, disarming scams, the charity scams. They call you up, hey, it's the fireman's charity. We're in your neighborhood again, and we would like to come by for some money. And I'm like, yeah, I bet you would.
Yeah, the policemen's, always used to get it in New York. The New York State policemen's blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, yeah, how much of my donation will actually go to the police? Well, and then they start stumbling. And it's because it's a fundraising deal and they give 2% to the charity. And you see that all the time, right?
Right. Well, and what's so funny too is because we have become, one of the premier experts on these frauds and scams, and we have up to the minute news information that we've aggregated from all of the top government agencies, the cybercrime labs. We get all of those scams and fraud alerts right away, and we aggregate them on our website. And one of the things that I find that is really interesting is that it's always these local ones that seem to be the bigger problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're really right. And think about that, but it's so true because
and one of the things that I'm doing now is every time I get a phone call or every time I get one of those emails, going along with it. And I went along with this fireman's one because I was waiting for I gave him a totally bogus. I just made up a Visa card number. And I gave him this card number, expiration, and all that stuff. And I said, you know what? I said, I want to do $500. And they're like, wow, I got a live one, because they were asking for like 20. And I'm like, no, you know what? My uncle is a fireman. It's important to me. I'm going to give you $500. And I'm waiting for them to call me back and say, hey, you know what? That account number didn't work. And if they were a legitimate charitable organization, wouldn't they do that?
Of course they would have, but they were a scam.
So they'd want their $500. These people are like, it's a scam. They don't, So I've been making up stuff. I've been clicking on links and putting in bogus information to see what I get. So we can flush them out, so we can let people know what's going on, and it's been a lot of fun. I've gotten a phone call for Verizon saying I have a $28. You know what? I'm not on Verizon.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So you really got to watch out for the ones that are closest to you. Those are the ones that are really going to get you more so than the international Monte Carlo scams, right?
Exactly.
And
that's where we lose perspective with all of this hype in the news.
Yeah. And it's those trips too, the free trips. That's a huge scam that they really perpetrate quite a bit. Heard them over and over again over the years, and they're still doing them to this date. They just want to get your credit card, right? And then go on a spree, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what? Another one is that's really interesting are these structured settlement claims.
Oh,
Have you seen those?
Oh, sure. It started out as a real business where you could really sell off your structured settlement. And now I don't know what the heck is the deal with it. So,
yeah, well, we got one of those things in the mail for selling off your structured settlement. And it had no contact information, no company name, none of this stuff. It had asterisks, for where they say restrictions apply or disclaimers or whatever. And it's this, you won the lottery thing and you should be getting more money back or whatever it said. And so I called the number and the number didn't even answer hi, Bob's structured settlement. It didn't even answer that way. The guy's like, hello?
Yeah, hello.
And I'm like, hi, I'm calling because you sent me. I know, totally unprofessional. And I drilled the guy over and over. He goes, why are you asking me so many questions? And I said, well, I want to know how you got my information to begin with. Did you buy this? Where did you get my name? And why are you sending me this stuff? Well, if you could give me the code on your card. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to give you the code. So, and I was using a name that wasn't the name on the card and stuff like that. Anyway. And I said, well, I'm the secretary, blah, blah, blah. And I just strung this guy along. And then finally, he was like, this sounds weird. He says, I don't know if I want to be on this phone call anymore. And I said, I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to scan your postcard and I'm going to put it up on my website, because I'm Heather Wagenhals from Unlock Your Wealth Radio. And I just outed you as a certified identity theft risk management specialist. You are a fraud, my friend, and you're going on my website. And then I hung up on him.
That's great.
But yeah, it is this, and so, it's funny. Somebody asked me earlier, doesn't it change your perspective on life that there's all these criminals out there? And I said, it's not that they're more, it's just that their destruction has become sensationalized. Yeah. And I said, but I actually look forward to the next scam, because I'm really getting into outing these people.
Yeah, it's great. That's great. It's a real service too. Definitely. So Heather, tell us website, radio show, where we find you.
Okay, radio show is syndicated across America, as well as available at unlockyourwealthradio.com. And if you want up-to-the-minute scams alerts and fraud alerts, visit moneycreditandyou.com. And then we also have from trackingyourmoneycode.com. Sign up for the newsletter to get the release date.
All right, excellent. And as always, you'll find the links on our site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Make sure you sign up for our mailing list. Got some great free webinars coming up. Heather, we will talk with you again real soon.
The pleasure is mine. Make it a great day, Kerry.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.